How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Happy. Kids are doing good, so can't
Awesome.
complain. Lot to talk about, so should be an interesting little podcast here.
Oh yeah.
What have you been doing this summer? What have you been up to?
Oof. Mostly trying to focus on myself, actually.
Okay, good. That's
I
always
mean,
good.
like I've
That's the
been,
best.
yeah, I've been trying to discipline myself, sleep at have get a sleep schedule and you
Hell
know,
yeah.
complete a to-do list that I have every day. At least
Great.
at least 2 or 3 points every day, but I've been doing a lot more than 2 to 3 points every day. So that's been amazing. How about you?
I used to do a lot of wellness stuff at Comcast, so that's right up my alley. Sleep schedule. I used to have insomnia. No, I don't.
Nice.
Basically your body starts releasing melatonin earlier than most people go to sleep, like 7, 8, 9 o'clock.
Really?
So yeah, so if you don't catch that early, people going to bed at 11, 12, you're missing half of your natural melatonin. That's
Hmm.
why people can go to bed at 12 and wake up at 5 and they just can't sleep,
Oof.
you know? So going to
Okay.
bed early is key, and then getting sunlight in the morning early is very key because that will tell your body that it's early and it's bright, and then you hit that cycle, so it works well.
So, are you saying that taking a walk in the morning is good?
Definitely, like taking a walk with your shirt off and shorts on, or like
Hmm.
I lay out. I have some porches that I made from some shit coins that I flipped, so I call it the rocket bunny porch.
Okay.
And I lay out there and just tan for
Are
like
you
10,
serious?
yeah, for like 10, 15 minutes every day. And
Nice.
it works really good.
Nice. Well, I've heard that the most beneficial sunlight is in the morning
Right.
when the sun is still rising.
Right.
So that's what
Yeah,
I've heard.
that's exactly it. So, the sun is the most bright, like, or most, damaging to you 11 to 2. But like, I don't even wear sunscreen anymore because I'm so used to the sun now.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even wear it.
Huh. Interesting. Well, there's a lot of what do you call it? There is a lot of information out there about different things. People have tried different things.
Sure.
Um, and different things work for different people.
Right.
So that's very interesting. But this is episode 3, my man. You were
Well,
supposed to be episode 2.
that's all
But
good. Well,
yeah,
episode 3,
but
here we are.
yeah, but this is very funny because actually this is basically what me and my friend we call life. And everything that if we're planning something and then something comes up, we basically just respond to each other. That's life. It's like it doesn't
Sure.
matter how bad, how much you plan. If life comes in the way, life comes in the way. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I have 4 kids, so this summer has been crazy.
Oh, I actually would not have guessed you had 4 kids.
I look young, you know why? Because I don't really drink.
That's good.
I don't
That's
drink
good.
much, so that's, keeps me young. But yeah, dude. So we met at VCon you were in the selfie line.
Yes, I was about to tell you. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit so people know who you are?
Well, my name's Drew Marshall. I'm known as Hydrate or Crypto Hydrate, and I've been in crypto since late 2017. I started trading mostly coins on Binance and Coinbase.
Okay.
And I got into a coin. The fourth shit coin listed on Coinbase was ZRX, and I bought a bunch of that, and it went down. And I said, "Gosh, I got to figure out what this is about." So I started to like learn about the Zero X project,
Okay.
and they had a staking platform where you could stake ZRX and get a little bit of ETH or whatever. So I started to test it, and then I started to measure the payouts, and I started to make these charts. I worked at Comcast for 12 years as a first like a frontline agent, and then supervisor, project manager, did everything there. And so I started using my charting ability to like test what these payouts are and predict. You could stake in these like different pools. So I figured out which pool paid out the best. This got their attention, and they invited me to their conference, which was like a month before COVID hit.
Yeah.
So I went there and I got pilled on NFTs. I met Devin Finzer, who's the CEO of OpenSea. And I had a business card with my wallet QR code on it. And he scanned it with a grocery store fucking scanner. And he opened up my wallet on the screen. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, oh, you have NFTs. You have unstoppable domains. And I was like, okay. He was like, you should get some more and trade on OpenSea. And I was like, okay. So they also had Maker's Place there. And I started to buy NFTs on Maker's Place. And then when COVID hit, the artists were really struggling. So I started to design NFTs, learn to make them, and started to help artists. And I became a collector and a designer. So I would provide my own art or my own input into projects, and started to collect a lot of NFTs. And then the bull market hit, and I cashed out a ton of shit coins, did really well, and quit my job at Comcast.
All right, nice.
And then I started to work part-time in Web3 and flip NFTs and do my thing. So what that turned into was writing, because I love writing. And I did a lot of business writing at Comcast, whether it was processes, whether it was employee newsletters, trainings. So I started to apply that in Web3, and I started to become like a researcher and writer. So I would write articles about topics that I liked. And I found last summer this photographer named Michael Yamashita, who's 73 years old now. And he had 40 years with National Geographic. This is one of his prints behind me.
This is this is what you were giving out at VCon, right?
This is what I was giving out at VCon, because this was the struggle now. I became this crypto guy.
Yeah.
And all the people that I knew came up to me and they're like, well, what should I buy, dude? What should I do? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what to buy because you don't know when to sell.
Oof, I guess.
You have no training.
Yes.
You're going to get fished.
Uh-huh.
So I try to stay out of it. Like I would like drop a coin here and there, like, hey, get ETH at, 250, or, get this coin or that coin. But I didn't really like doing that because people would then hit me up all the time. So I was like, what can I tell people to buy that is super safe and the artist is not going to just disappear? Because a lot of the NFTs, are like relatively unknown artists.
True.
And NFT is mostly their hottest, that's their biggest business. So
Yes.
outside of NFT, a lot of them don't have a big career in art.
Well, let me
So I
ask
was
you
like,
this,
yeah.
if I may. So, have you ever had anyone come up to you, if you've ever said like get Ethereum or get whatever have you ever had anyone come up to you and be like, hey man, you told me to buy this and look where this got me? And have you had people?
Yeah, and so I got into Yamashita and his work because I figured if they buy this NFT, this is from someone who has 40 years with National Geographic. It really can't go that wrong. He's not going
Okay.
to rug.
Yeah,
He's not going to rug. He's not going to disappear. I mean, he's old. He could die,
of
God
course.
forbid. But it's like this is someone that's very proven before NFTs. In the fall of 2020, I was barely doing anything in DeFi. I was just buying coins on centralized exchanges. And so the Sushi Swap article came out where they did the vampire attack on Uniswap. Are you familiar with that?
I am not. Could you
Well,
tell me
it's
more about it?
interesting. Yeah, and for the viewers, I mean, it's really interesting. So, Uniswap had like a 0.3% fee per trade.
Okay.
And Sushi Swap came along and said, "Hey, well, we'll charge you 0.25%, and we'll let you farm our token as well." So, let's say you had dollars and ETH in a liquidity pool, 50-50 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you were earning fees. You could give those LP tokens to Sushi Swap, and they would give you sushi every block. So Sushi Swap vampire drained like $1 billion plus liquidity from Uniswap in like a couple weeks.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was incredible. And so me and this guy, Big Crypto King, were trading sushi up and down. We bought in at like 75 cents. It went up to like 10, $12. It was the best play I ever did, and it got me into DeFi. So
Okay.
then I started to,
Wait, what did you say it got you into?
well, DeFi, decentralized finance.
Okay.
So then, there was all these sushi swap clones, like basically farm tokens popping up, copying sushi.
Mm-hmm.
So I got into this project called Kimbop, and I was an administrator for Kimbop, and the developer was like already like half ghosted even in the beginning. There was no hype. So we tried to save this shitty project, which failed.
Okay.
And then I got into Rotten Swap, which was like Sushi Swap, but you would earn Rotten token,
Okay.
and it would burn 2.5% rot per transaction for maggot. So I got involved in it as an administrator and community manager in these little shitty sushi copies, which all failed. But you learn about DeFi through this process. And after doing Rotten Swap, I knew I never wanted to found a project because it would be too hard. So that was like the best training I could get. And what was nice about these little farms is there was no pre-mine. You had to stake assets to earn the token. So there was no danger of like being dumped on by the administrator because you earn the tokens if you put your money up.
Okay.
So you add liquidity to the protocol. Basically, you have uh in this case it was Ethereum and Rotten token. So you would buy
Okay.
Rot, you would pair with Ethereum, you post it and you can earn Rot. But that gave me all my training in community management and like how to post on Twitter and how to use tags and how to deal with users. And it was just like decentralized finance university. Um, and so I ended up working on Rotten Swap for a long time. Kimbop was like a flash in the pan. The developer
Okay.
disappeared and there was nothing we could do.
Yeah.
And it was a very small user base. I think our top liquidity locked was like $100,000, which is nothing. So Rotten Swap was bigger, and the Rotten Swap developer tried to launch a decentralized Twitter, which didn't work. I mean, it worked, but it was very shady because it like recorded your IP address and you could see
Yeah.
everyone's IP. So it was just not good. But Rotten Swap died and everyone was in there making fun of us and saying that we rugged. And so it became funny to say it went to zero. And
Yeah.
a lot of these early memes like were developing at that time about projects where you're laughing about it going to zero. But what we did in Rotten Swap, which was groundbreaking, is I started to pay artists to make NFTs with a rotten theme, and we would give them for free to the holders because we're like, well, we're not going to pump the token. There's no mechanism for that. This is a legit, a couple of admins just trying to keep it going. So we ended up making all these NFTs and paying artists and learning to put like different traits in the metadata. So we have like one of the first projects launched on Polygon, which was last year. And I made some of the first NFTs on Polygon through this project. So I experimented so much that once I left my job, I started to really help artists. Starting with someone named Kaya. Kaya, she's in Germany, like an abstract artist.
Okay.
Zoe Winters, who is an anime artist, and I started to mentor them, help them market. And through Zoe, I met Mike Yamashita. So when I met Mike Yamashita, I actually
What
bought his first drop, which flopped.
what is Zoe?
Zoe Winters, she is
Oh, so you mean you through Zoe? That's how you met?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Through
Okay.
through
Yeah, I thought.
Zoe Winters, I met Mike, and his first drop was with Origin Protocol, and it flopped. I bought it.
Okay.
I was the winner of the auction. They were expecting a lot more bidders, but I knew like this guy's work is good. This is his Genesis work, you
Yeah.
know. So I said, let me help your team make better products. And then we made the Four Seasons of Jujago, which is now historically in NFT photography, a well-known collection that introduced some new ideas to the space. We don't know if we were the first to do it. We probably were, but I never like to say we're the first. I say we're one of the first to put technical photography traits in the metadata on chain, which is pretty cool.
Okay. That's nice. Well, I've seen his NFTs
Okay.
because I scanned it, when I was standing in line and you were handing those out. They're
Nice.
actually pretty cool. And you said they were unique, right? What was
Yeah.
it?
So
It was photos of, well, I can't remember.
China. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
It's
a
China.
different specific areas of China, like,
Right.
ru-
So Mike was the first person of color to be a full-time photographer at Nat Geo.
okay,
It was all white boys and girls club, and they had other people come in, but he was full-time and he became part of their Asia desk. So it was him and one other person who, when it was an Asia project, they would send him.
okay,
And so he had better China access for a while than the native Chinese photographers. And he was obviously a Sony shooter. And with Nat Geo, the Chinese wanted Nat Geo to come in and, get pictures of spots. So Jiuzhaigou is very remote. Took him 4 days to get there. And it's at the bottom of the Tibetan peninsula. It's this big valley.
okay,
And it is one of the most beautiful parks in the world. And it's considered one of China's most scenic parks. So he went there several times. He was there during a very rare snowstorm and got a ton of pictures. And what's interesting is the waterfalls that are there were destroyed, some of them in a 2013 earthquake. And so they're still waterfalls, but they're just not, some are not the same. So he was able to capture some of these. And when I saw this collection, I said, well, why don't we put all the technical stuff in the metadata? So through Rotten Swap, I would build NFTs on Cargo.
okay,
Cargo.build was purchased. We still don't know who bought it. It's a big company bought it. We don't know if it was Coinbase or someone else. But Cargo, you could edit and put custom traits in the metadata. And you could even go back once the NFT was minted and edit those if you held the token, which was interesting. So this allowed us to build this really robust rarity for Jiuzhaigou. So the lens, the camera, the season that it was, all these different data points we put in the metadata. And then I was looking at solvency. So Ezra Miller did this project called Solvency, and it was 500 units of this generative art, and he had rarity. So he calculated the rarity rank. So I said, well, we have this data. Why don't we make the rarity rank, since we know it beforehand? It's not generative. Let's put it in the metadata. So Jiuzhaigou is well, I'm going to say one of the first again. It's probably the first collection that had rarity in the metadata,
okay,
meaning that you have 10 or 11 traits in the metadata.
okay.
And you can stack the NFTs. It's a 61 photo collection. You can stack them from rarest to least rare.
All right.
So we were like, all right, if we have this, we'll literally make a metadata trait with the rarity of each token so that you don't have to access a third-party site. You don't have to access a spreadsheet. You can look up the metadata and look at the rarity there all in one spot, so you don't have to go anywhere. So we did that. And then later we did Tibet. So the next big collection we dropped was Tibet. But we had one in between, which was a freebie called Yamashita Gan. So if you know Japanese, they say like Goro-sen or Yamashita-sen.
Hmm.
It's like a form of respect.
Yeah.
So we said instead of Yamashita-sen, we'll say Yamashita Gan. And he had these photos. It was like 2 to 4 photos that an AI would take and make into a collage. So
Okay.
combine the images.
All right.
And so we said, all right, okay, we have rarity for this too. It's just like 2 or 3, 4 properties, but we can rank them and there's no ties. So why don't we mint an order of rarity? And that's what we end up doing. We minted the collection in the order of rarity. So token 1 was the most rare.
Okay.
And this has a lot of implications. So there's other projects since that have come up with this idea on their own.
Okay.
But we've never seen many projects minted in order of rarity. But what's cool is like now on Manifold, so Manifold is now basically what you would use instead of Cargo. Cargo's gone. So Manifold, you can launch your own custom contract on there for your NFT collection. You can put your branding rather than making it on the OpenSea storefront or making it on the Rarible. You would make your own stuff. So you could do, Brian token or whatever. So with Manifold, now you can drag a digital photo during the minting process into the UI, and it will pull all that metadata automatically so that
Hmm.
you don't have to program it. Now, there's tweaks that have to happen. Sometimes
Yeah.
the photo doesn't capture it 100% correctly, and you make changes.
Okay.
But this is now an automated function within a lot of minting sites, which is really cool. So we feel that we probably influenced to a degree the evolution of NFT photography and how it's captured and how it's presented. So that for me, in all I've done, that is my biggest accomplishment, I feel, in crypto,
That's
where
nice.
I was able to help this guy's team do something new and exciting. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, help me understand this. You said that you got into crypto late 2017, right?
Right.
All right. So how did you get into the space? Because when we met, I'm just gonna give you my honest thought, like quick thought process. I'm like, okay, this guy is probably promoting one of his things, like a lot of people were doing.
Yeah.
But we got into a conversation fast, and then we talked about, mental health.
Right.
So, so I was looking at you, and and I asked you, would you like to, uh, would you like to be a guest on my podcast? And you said yes, absolutely. I would love to talk about it. And I saw you, I saw the look in your eyes, and I was like, this guy's serious, you know. But
Absolutely.
so how did you get, before we get into the mental health thing, how did you get into crypto? Because everyone has this one friend, who probably got in early, who who got in early and tried to tell everyone, hey, buy this. But not a lot of people would hear, do anything about it until it was kind of too late. Or not too late, because we're still very early in the process,
Sure.
but it had already, you know, advanced more than.
This is the best question ever. So I have that friend, and he's crazy.
Okay.
His name's Dave. I named one of my sons after him. And
Nice.
he didn't even have running water in his house for like years. He was collecting rainwater
Are you
and
serious?
yeah, filling it up in containers. I love him. He saved my life twice. Crazy as fuck. So he's like Bitcoin, Bitcoin. So he was actually in MGT, which was that McAfee mining company. And I had bought MGT and flipped it for like a 2x, and which was great because I was living I was living paycheck to paycheck. I've been paying for my
Yes.
wife's pharmacy school for years, and I had nothing. I come from a nice family that have money. My wife's family has money, but we didn't have money.
Yeah.
My wife's a pharmacist. I was working at Comcast. I'm making like 40K a year. So he's like, oh, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And I'd heard about XRP. So I wanted to buy Bitcoin so I could buy XRP. So I went to his house and I was like, sell me $100 worth of Bitcoin OTC. And this was literally when Bitcoin was like 19,000 at the peak of that cycle.
Okay.
So I buy Bitcoin. I buy XRP for like $1. It pumps to $3. I was like, yes, I took profit. I got Ethereum Classic. So I started like dabbling and started losing money and
Yeah.
aping in at catching knives all the way down
Hmm.
2018, 19. Um, and my friend, like none of my friends were this deep in it. I just got obsessed with it. And I was following all these traders on Twitter. And for 4 years,
Wait, you said you find all these traders?
yeah, like shitcoin traders.
Okay, traders. I
Yeah,
thought you said
traders.
traders. I was like, oh wait,
Some were
wait.
traders.
Okay.
Some were traders. But like I got obsessed with it and I had a big feeling about it. But
Okay.
at the same time at work, so my twins had been born. I have 4 kids. And at work, like they weren't treating me that good. They weren't giving me like paternal leave. They were giving me all this work. I was the guy at Comcast that like could get stuff done.
Okay.
So all the people would come to me like, hey, can you do my job real quick with this thing? I need help. Like they don't try, they don't self-teach.
Yeah.
A lot of people in a corporate environment. So, I worked with a lot of great people, but I also worked with a lot of people that leaned on me too hard, and I was burnt out. I was burnt out as fuck.
Oh yeah.
So
Been
in
there.
yeah, so in early 2017, I actually took mental health leave. I took 6 weeks off to just kind of, and you know,
Understandable.
I started to get into mindfulness. We actually had gone to the neonatal clinic. My twins were 6 weeks premature.
Okay.
So we went to this neonatal clinic and they're doing all the testing. And the doctor noticed, like, we're fucking stressed. Like, we're fighting in the office. And he's like, I'm going to lead you through a little like mindfulness session, just 5 minutes. And it's going to help you breathe and relax and just kind of reset. Okay.
Okay.
So I do this and I cried, like I was bawling. So it was
Interesting.
very, yeah, it was very impactful on me. So I'm like, okay. So I go home and I start to learn a little bit about mindfulness. And then at work, they started to have a mental health focus and they brought in these executive coaches. And there's an executive coach named Tracy Moore, and she was one of the people that was there. And she did a mindfulness session for us. And I went up after and I said, I love mindfulness and I'm learning this. And thank you for doing this. And I really appreciate it. And so I had gotten in trouble at work. I had brought in a computer, where I was trading coins, and I didn't want to
Okay.
trade on the work computer, so I brought in my own computer, and they caught me, and they wrote me up, and then I was pissed. I was like, here I am, I work so hard, and I do all this stuff for everyone, and you're gonna
Yeah.
write me up. I just need a little time off because I'm stressed out, and I need a little something to pull me away. And that made me very mad. And at that point, I resolved to get out of there.
Okay.
And it's funny because I was watching Gary Vee's videos on LinkedIn, and
Nice.
he's like work for free, and he's like inspiring me, and I'm checking out these videos, so it's all coming together. So we have this all employee, like they used to have these cohorts where they would bring in like 50 leaders, and it would be all people from different departments, so you didn't like have anyone in there that you knew or work with directly.
Yeah.
But my boss's boss went in there, and it was the first session after they'd written me up, so he's thinking like, oh, he's gonna lay me out, he's gonna
Yeah.
So I was very professional. And Tracy gets up there, and Tracy's like, we're going to do mindfulness. And I'm actually going to invite Drew Marshall up to lead the session. And I was like, she didn't tell me about it.
Okay.
I'd never done it.
All right.
I was shook, but in my heart, I knew it was something beneficial. So I got up there, I led the session, and it went really well. And later that year, we were able to do, I was working on NPS, Net Promoter Score,
Mm-hmm.
and we were doing these employee stress workshops. So they
Okay.
let me start to lead mindfulness at the corporate level for all these employees on a regular basis. So I started doing like 3 sessions a day. And I used to go on these training tours. I'd go to all these different call centers and train folks. So now I went on a mindfulness tour, and I actually taught that session over 300 times. And I have it on YouTube for free, no commercials, the 5 minute Drew Marshall mindfulness session. So
I'll listen
I
to
got
that.
yeah, I got really into mindfulness, and I'm telling you, dude, that changed my life. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Would you said the first or the doctor approached you when you had your twins,
Right.
right? How were those number three and four or two and three?
3 and 4.
Three and four.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were basically stressed out with life, you were stressed out with your kids and work,
Sure. Yeah.
and that's what got you into it. So one doctor's choice of actually doing something of a situation that he saw got you into the whole mindfulness thing, right?
Yeah, because I would have been exposed to it at work, but I wouldn't have started teaching it necessarily if I
Yeah.
hadn't had that experience of how deeply it impacted me at the time. And it's funny because I would go into different call centers and lead mindfulness, and we would have people get up in the middle of the session and leave crying because they're finally listening to themselves. And like, I'm not 100% sold on mindfulness or whatever other practice, but it's just getting a chance to listen to yourself That's really
Yes.
what it is. I'm not here
Yes.
pumping mindfulness tonight. Feel me?
Yes.
It's just shutting up and being quiet and feeling and not judging what you're feeling, saying, oh, well, I don't want to feel that. Or, oh,
Yeah.
no, I should feel in this direction. No, you're turning towards feeling without judging. And that helps you listen to yourself because, like, sometimes you sit down and you're like, man, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
You ask yourself, why don't I feel good? And you can start to unpack that. Well, what am I worrying about? What's bothering me? And it takes time to hone your ear. It takes time to get to know yourself. People think they know themselves. There's that saying,
Oh,
I know you better than you know yourself.
yes.
That can be true. Because if you don't listen to yourself, you don't know yourself. You're just going through the motions. So what mindfulness helped me do is start to understand and unpack what is really driving my behavior.
And here I would say that it's okay if you don't have a crying session from the first time you try
Sure.
mental health. I can relate to 2017. I got a, you know, I was going out from the mosque. I was praying Friday prayer, and then a childhood friend basically comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, did you hear about this guy who passed away? He got murdered." And I was like, "No, who?" And then he told me his name, and then and his name is Waleed. And then I was like, "Okay." So I only know two people with that name who are friends. And I'm like, okay, so this guy, I kind of like talked to him recently, so it can't be him. The other one, I was like, no, this can't be. He's my childhood friend. We grew up together. We went to the same kindergarten. We went to the same school for 7 years, and then we got split up for 1 year, and then we got back together in another school. So we just met up, and we are like, hey, you starting this school too? Amazing. So I was like, okay. So I tried to, and I went into a forum that basically talks about murders and all that, and tried to find out the name. And then I found out the name of, and then I actually called the father of my friend, and I was like, "Is this correct?" He's like, "Yes." That he's like, "You're correct." So I didn't know what to do. I was, I was going to pray, and then I was going to work. So his where he's buried is very close to my workplace. So I, rushed over there. I tried to find his grave. I couldn't find it. I was like, okay, I need to go to work. So I went to work, and that didn't affect me. I thought that I would cry my eyes out because he is such a close friend. So I was kind of pissed at myself, which is weird, but I was kind of pissed at myself. It was like 1 tear, 2 tears. Is like, is this all he means to you? Because that's the kind of like thoughts that were running through my mind. But then when I got to work, I was walking from the parking lot to my workplace, and I was trying to run the conversation in my mind that I was going to have with my manager and explain the situation to him and be like, "Hey, if I'm down today, you know why." And I just went there and I leaned over on a, what do you call this, like a rack or something. So I leaned over because he was leaning over. I was like, I told him I need to talk to you. And I talked to him. I spoke my manager's name, and the tears started flowing. I could barely talk, I could barely breathe. And that's when it actually hit me, the realization, okay, this is happening. So he took me into a room. A lot of people came to try to comfort me and all that, but I had to leave work because obviously I couldn't work in that state. But it's okay. It's okay to not cry. It's okay to not have the feelings first. Sometimes you just need time to process everything. So that's what I realized when I found out, when I found out uh, the death of my friend, about the death of my friend. Now, I've been through, a lot of other things as well, but I find mental health very interesting because it's a trend today. People don't realize this, but it's your people are. Hold on, let me try to phrase this. People are feeling so bad today. I think we have reached I mean, we're breaking records and how bad people are feeling generally.
Yeah.
For
Well,
me, it
first of
was
all, I want to say Allah yarham your friend. May
thank you,
Allah be merciful to him and accept him in Jannah, inshallah.
inshallah. Wait, you're Arab.
La,
You're not,
no, I'm
because you
not
have
Arab.
Arab.
I have Arab.eth, but I am not Arab. I'm European, a little Andalusian, a little Punjabi, but mostly just German.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So keep going. I didn't want to interrupt you. Keep going.
No, thank you. But the reason I say Arab, my friend started calling me Arab. She's from the south, so I was like, hey, I like this. It sounds better than Arab. And I was like, no, I'll keep using Arab. No, but for me, I actually hit a mental health like decline. I would say somewhere around 2020, 21, because I was working really hard. It was around 2020. That's when it all basically started. I was working really hard. I was giving it my all at my work, but nothing was happening. You were waking up, you were going to work, you're going home, you meet your parents, you eat something, and then you repeat the cycle. And I told myself, like, I can't live like this. I don't like this. And I had problems with managers at my workplace. It was a shit show. I got one manager, the most amazing manager. I still have contact with him today, and he tried to help me, and we had deep conversations, and he was understanding of me. But I noticed on myself, I started losing hair because I had longer hair, so I started losing hair. I started losing hair. I gained weight. I wasn't feeling myself at all. I felt like a robot. I felt very empty inside. When I left that job, it was honestly like a liberation. It's bad to say about a workplace, you know, it's bad to say, maybe to say that about a workplace, but to get that feeling, it's insane. It's insane. You feel free. You feel like, okay, now I can finally try to work on myself. And it was an amazing feeling. It was like someone took a load out of your shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, the jobs can really wear you down. The weight gain is
Mhm.
key. That tells you because, work culture, people stress eat, number one. But when you have more cortisol in your body, stress hormone, you gain weight. So it helps. And then you're so tired after work mentally that you don't have the mental and spiritual energy to force yourself to do physical things, which is kind
Mhm.
of funny. That's why it's important for people to have a trainer or somebody like a friend that calls them up like, hey, let's go run, let's go do this. So those athletics communities are so important. It's important for kids. Like you see a lot of kids these days and they're like on their iPad, thick glasses, like
Yeah.
you can tell they just like haven't really been too super athletic or active outside. And
Yes.
it's sad because it's those things that help you develop those accountability partners.
Yes.
Um, and it's funny, like, I used to watch Gary's videos and I realized like I have to start building a brand here. If I'm going to get out of Comcast, I have to start doing something where people will, follow me and consume my content.
Yes.
So I started to do that free work. The working for free was working for your ZRX, doing analysis of their staking. And that got me into their conference and I started meeting people. And it's important for people to get started. That's why I come on any podcast I'm invited to. I don't care if there's one listener. I'm trying to help the others who are trying to build their brand.
Absolutely.
And I have some really unique experience in Web3 and crypto. So, hearing something with me on it is fucking worth it. And that's not me being cocky. It's not me being cocky. It's just me knowing what I have.
Yeah.
And I think part of being at a job is they literally condition you to not know what you have
Yes.
because they're constantly nitpicking you because they don't want to promote you. They don't want to give you the top reviews. They want to keep everyone average. So they're on edge. So they keep working harder. So the entire
Unless
corporate,
you bend over in some workplace and you follow exactly whatever they want, unfortunately.
well, some people need that. Like if you ask me, what should an 18-year-old do today? Should they go to college? Should they do? I would have them, I'd say, learn a trade or go and work in a shitty corporate environment, because that is boot camp. That is going to teach you to obey the leader, show up on time, get the work done. Some people need a few years of that. Even if it's not the end game, it's going to refine you. So I had a boss who would always tell me no, and everyone hated him because he didn't communicate well. He was very introverted, but he was actually very genius. And I didn't realize that until after I left. And he was very good at giving you feedback about how you're showing out. So we'd go in these meetings, and I was always the idea guy. Like, I have an idea how to fix this. And the idea guy can be fucking annoying because he's got all these ideas, but he can't get them done. So I had to start really refining what I said and where, and being, basically building what's called, you have executive presence.
Yes.
Which takes time to build. So he really coached me well. So I think a lot of young men today, young women, need to get in an environment where they're reporting to somebody and they stay at that job. Because here's the thing, you look at people's resumes today, and it's like 1 year here, 1.5 years here, 1 year here, 9 months here, 2 years here. That's not enough time, in my view, to really learn and grow in an organization. I mean, for me, I had 12 years at Comcast. I never worked anywhere else. I mean, I did like bartending or whatever, little stuff, but I spent 12 years there. And when you meet people over time and you develop that deep understanding of the business processes, you really can grow exponentially. So I always encourage people, like, if you're somewhere that sucks, dig in and really try to fix it. Spend at least a little time doing that, because process improvement is really healthy, because if you can improve a process, you can improve yourself.
Yeah.
And so what I always encourage people to is know your worth. People are so humble that they're insecure. Like, oh, how did it go? And like everything they do, oh, how was it? And they're asking for too much feedback.
Yeah.
Ask for feedback, but don't go too hard, because then you seem insecure and you feel like it's never enough. And the most important thing that Tracy Moore taught me, who got me into mindfulness, we did some executive sessions, and I was sitting in that session, like telling her all this stuff and all my woes. And she said, Drew, stop. She said, Drew, look at me. She said, you are enough. Meaning that, like, I'm always trying to be better and do better, but it's okay to sometimes say I am enough.
Yeah.
I don't have to get a little bit better here, a little bit better there all the time. You can be content with what you have, and that gives you confidence, because people want to see the real you and not this person you're always trying to be.
Yeah.
So I tell people, you're enough, and because you're enough, you deserve rest. Because if people don't think they're enough, they're constantly working, constantly hustling. And this is even my advice to Gary. This is if Gary called me and he said, hey, Drew, I want you to give me one piece of feedback, I'd say, Gary, you're enough. Like, you can rest. You don't have to stay up all night. You don't have to be constantly doing stuff. Like, I want to see Gary just like chilling out.
Yeah.
And he's actually gotten better at that. He started to put out more content about resting. But I could tell he's not sleeping. He's up doing all these wine parties. Well, you don't sleep good when you have alcohol and stay up late. So I know you, Gary. I know you.
Well, this is interesting because I've never actually had that kind of I've never actually realized that, or even seen anything of that
For
side of him.
Gary?
Yeah, because
Gary?
I feel like, because he always says you need to sleep well, you got to do stuff you love, and he seems to really love what he's doing. So
Sure.
I used to listen to him a lot when I was working, and he actually kept me kind of sane, and he's the one who made me quit my job. Because when I met him, I told him, your question kept popping up in my mind. Are you happy? Are you happy? I was like, hell no, I'm not happy. So what the hell are you still doing at your job? So I just decided, I was like, screw it. I'm out. And that's what I did. Now, I do agree with you. You need to stay longer at a workplace to actually gain experience. But I also want to add that you need to know what you're doing. You can't just go in and have no plan. Because if you do, it's so easy to get lost in everything that's going on. But aside from that, if you don't know what you're doing, then what's the purpose of you actually going into that job? Because I went in, yes, I did have a purpose, but I didn't really act upon my purpose. So which way is why I got lost and I got, in a bad mental state. So you need to know exactly what you want to get up, or not exactly, but you need to have an kind of like an image or a goal, like what do I want to achieve here? Do I want to learn?
Yeah, I
But
mean, we used to make development plans, but I think what happens is like when you told me you left your job and it was you were relieved, I was shocked to hear that because for me, like I was definitely relieved, but at the same time, like it was weird because I had this routine and now it's gone and I had this void and I was afraid to leave the job and I had money and I was still afraid to leave because it was so comfortable. I had benefits and I had the salary and
yeah,
I didn't have to work super hard, towards the
yeah,
end. But it was still like very scary to pull the trigger. And because it's so comfortable. And I think that's why a lot of people get stuck in these jobs. They don't work for themselves because they need someone to tell them what to do.
yeah.
They need it because if they didn't have that, they wouldn't be disciplined enough to do it themselves.
Well, of
And
course.
they need that salary. And they get used to that. It's like a drug because every 2 weeks, bang, there's the money. So going out and getting your own money is difficult. I used to in the bear market, my friend's mom got an ETH like really early, and she had these exotic birds. So I used to go clean their cages and clean and do all the chores and clean the house, and she would pay me an ETH.
Yeah,
So I had one weekday off, and I used to do that. But yeah, I used to watch Gary's videos, and I got this vibe from him. He's like working so hard. I'm thinking like, dude, not everyone has your stamina. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
But he's very clear on that too.
Yeah.
He's very clear on do not try to be me, just be
Right.
yourself because I'm different. Because if you think about it, at VCon, he was standing for hours taking pictures and listening to people. Not a
Right.
lot of people have the mental fortitude or even or even the patience to even do that because we were standing in line for 2.5 hours. So imagine while we were standing in line for 2.5 hours, he was standing there listening to people for 2.5 hours. So
Yeah.
that's so. But yeah, I do agree with you to 100%. I do agree with you because you need to know you need to know what you want to do and you need to be disciplined. I have been without a salary for a year and
Yeah.
I do not regret quitting the job. Trust
Sure.
me. I'm like I'm happy. I know that everything will work out. I'm working for myself. I try to buy and sell stuff. Absolutely. It's slow, but I would rather have it this way than get back to work or be at the workplace that we're at.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, I think when you're doing work that's halal, it's like clean
mhm.
work and you're have good intentions. Um, and when you get the money, you do the right things with it. I think that's like some people call it karma,
Yeah,
some people call it barakah, but it's
yeah,
like the door is open. Um, I would donate. There's these friends of mine who went to Nepal and they
okay,
got stuck in the earthquake
okay,
and they started doing relief. They started like an NGO and they would build little houses and water taps and orchards and stuff. So I started donating to them, and that was my annual sadaqah. Instead
yeah,
of putting $10 in the box during Eid prayer or
yeah,
whatever, I
yeah,
would I would give like $1,000 every year to this organization, and we didn't have the money, but I knew they needed the support, and I knew that my wealth would increase if I did things with it where I knew that they would go along with that $1,000. I
okay,
knew that like that would go to building a little house or putting in a little orchard or a water tap. These guys were serious, and I knew they weren't wasting my money. So,
yes,
um, last December when Funks had pumped, I sold a bunch of Funks and made like 25K, and I gave that to them, and they did 104 new water taps for this entire hillside community.
Okay.
where you can imagine like there's a cul-de-sac of like 8 or 10 houses, and everybody goes to that same water tap.
Yes.
One tap. That's it.
Uh-huh.
So they redid the whole system, and now each house has a tap, and now they can water their orchards and expand the agriculture in the area.
Yeah.
So that was big, and that's improving people's quality of life. And water is so important. And this is it's mostly like Hindu, some Muslim people in this community, but I don't judge. I mean, people need love and need help. And so for me, once I started to really give and help people in my local community, I like it would just come to me like the different plays to make more money.
Yeah.
So I think helping people with your time, with the resources that you have, is very beneficial. And but you know what, it's funny, I have a funny story about how I met Gary. My theory about Gary is that he's loving unconditionally, and that's what gives him the drive. Because you could look at 12 and a half, and you could look at all of those traits that he talks about, like patience and this and that. But what I decided to do in my life 6 months ago, which has changed my life, is start to love unconditionally. I'm going to love my wife unconditionally,
Mm-hmm.
whether comes home happy and is ready to love me and make me a nice dinner or this, or whether she comes home pissed and I'm, making food and I'm taking care of everybody and she's going to take a nap. I'm not going to change the amount of love I have for her because of
Yeah.
that. And I think the only way that Gary can be meeting all these people and not getting annoyed with them with all the little demands they have is loving humanity unconditionally. And I felt his energy when I met him, and I was really surprised. I volunteered at VCon, so I was actually working those four
Nice.
days. Yeah. And we had an opportunity to meet Gary like the first day. Like he came to the park and like shook our hand, whatever.
Yeah.
But the lead that I was working with, Ellie, she was like, "Do you want to meet Gary?" And I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "You got 7,000 people here plus that are trying to meet Gary this weekend. I'm
Mm-hmm.
good. I'll leave Gary alone. Let Gary do his thing. And I'm not gonna stand in any lines. I'm not gonna walk up to him and with a book. Like I'm just here to help Gary because
Yeah.
like off chain utility is hard in NFTs. So I wanted to come see, number one, how's this gonna work? I'm gonna measure the team. How well are they doing? I'm gonna pitch in, give them everything I have. Um, so I worked, and the last day I was like, "Hey y'all, I'm gonna do a half day. I'm gonna enjoy the event finally. Um, I'm gonna work a little in the morning and then whatever."
Yeah.
So Ellie hits me up and she's like, "Where are you?" I was like, "I'm here or there." She's like, "Come to the mascot area. We're gonna have you meet Gary." And I was like, "I don't need to meet Gary. Don't bring Gary to me. Don't do this." She's like, "No, we're gonna have you do a photo shoot for the volunteers." And I was like, "Oh hell!" I had just gone to the World of Women party the night before. I was a little hungover. I had my little CBD gummies, so I was feeling it. And my shirt was all wrinkled. So I was like, "Fuck!" Like I have no notice for this photo shoot. So I go over to this area, and I'm like, "What is going on here?" And suddenly he comes up like on a cloud. Like I swear to God, like he's got all these assistants with him, bodyguards,
Yeah.
photographers, then the fans, and it was really overwhelming. and I and I was and I was didn't have even much time to like think in my head like, what do I want to say to this guy? So I was just like, chill out, man, just do what's natural. So I said, Gary, I said, your advice helped so many people, including me, and I was able to now work for myself.
Yeah.
So thank you for what you do. And he's like, thanks for stepping it up. And we did the pictures. So I'm the only person at VCon, I think, that Gary came to me instead of me going to him. And I didn't even want to meet him, and I met him anyway.
That's nice.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. It is. It is. I was actually standing in line for the Egyptian, I think it was the Egyptian food truck. Do you remember it?
Mm.
Yeah, so I was just standing in line there waiting, for I'm waiting there. And then suddenly he comes out from one of the sides of the stadium and he passes by. But I also had the thought of, you know what? A lot of people want to stop him, take photos. He has a lot to do. I'll just stand in line and wait for my turn and actually go and say hi to him. I bet you 1,000% if I stopped him to take a picture with him, he would not have said no. But yes, what you're saying is 1,000% correct. You need to give. You don't need to give money. Give some of your time. Give some of, time, love, money, whatever you want. It is very important because you can't keep living just for yourself.
The hardest thing to do is give your time, even if there's sometimes people that you would prefer not to be giving it to. That's
Oh,
the hardest thing.
hmm,
And Allah Ta'ala says in Quran, Abasa wa tawalla,
yes.
right? So and for those of y'all that don't know Arabic and maybe don't care, this the story. So Muhammad had this blind man who wanted to learn about Islam. And Muhammad that day wanted to go talk to the tribe leaders.
Yeah.
So there was a point where Muhammad had to be like, all right, blind man, just hold the phone. I gotta go do something here and talk to these tribe leaders, because if they embraced Islam, then it's helping the movement big time.
Hmm.
But this blind man, Muhammad's thinking like, well, he's shoe in, he's already, into it, so I can put him aside. And Allah Ta'ala came in Quran and sent the verse down to say, you turned away from him, and basically saying you shouldn't have.
He
So
was blind, wasn't he?
he was blind. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a reason why, people get put in front of us. And sometimes we're like we have all old friends that fell off. We have old friends that were bad with money. Maybe they
Yeah.
were addicts, gamblers, they're some kind of degenerates, and they lost it. And maybe their health floundered. Maybe they got in with the wrong crowds. And they come to us sometimes. And the mentality these days is cut and cut early. Like, I can't have people in my zone that aren't people that I admire.
Oh, 30.
They're not people that I look up to. So I'm not gonna go chill.
Yeah.
And I was telling my son this the other day. I said, look, you have your friend group. Your
Hmm.
friend group is people that help you build.
Yes.
You can go to the gym together. You can go study together.
Yes.
Everybody's working hard. You can pay for dinner because next week they gonna pay for dinner.
Yes.
You know that there's going to be reciprocation.
Yes.
And I was like, then you have your shepherding group.
Yes.
You have a group of people that they think that you're their friend, but you're not going to spend out money on them because it's not going to reciprocate. Maybe in charity you could,
Yeah, but
but
even
you
if it
can't.
doesn't reciprocate, it doesn't always need to.
It doesn't need to. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, you can't expect that they will.
Oh,
With this
absolutely
with this
not.
group,
Absolutely not.
you
Yeah.
have a group. You say, yeah, I'll take care of the dinner because you're helping them, not because you're their friend. You see what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yes.
So the shepherding group is people that you have to keep a little distance.
Hmm.
You can't leave your wallet on the table and step out the room. You
Hmm.
know that you're not going to like leave them alone in your car. You're not going to leave the door open for Shaitan to then say, oh, well, maybe they got you. Maybe they stole from you. You never know. You
Shaitan
have
is the
to,
devil for people who
yeah,
don't
na'udhu
know.
billah. Yeah. So the thing is, you have to have a group of people that you're helping
Yes.
and you're there for them, but you can't roll with them like in your crew because
Yes.
that's going to bring you down.
Yes. You need to be very careful, absolutely, who you spend time with, because some people are very lovely people, but they're not really there themselves.
Mm.
And sometimes something that I've realized part time, and this it has been super clear this year, is that you cannot absolutely not help someone who does not want to help, need or doesn't want the help or doesn't even want to change. That is, I mean, this year I've seen it more than the past year. Like if you think about from July last year to July this year, I've seen it very, very clearly. You cannot help someone. Um, you cannot help someone that doesn't want help. But saying that, you should always try to plant seeds.
Right.
Any seeds. You do not know which seed will actually grow. And when I say seed, I don't mean literal seed, like your actions. Those are your seeds. You don't know which seed will actually sprout and become the largest tree ever, or
Yeah.
whatever plant you want. Because the reason why I asked you, this brings us back to when the doctor spoke to you and said, let me do a mental health and for 5 minutes, and you started crying. That was something he did, was like, you know what, let me just do it. I don't know what it will do, but hopefully it will help him. Apparently it did. But in my first episode, I actually talked to my friend that I've known for almost 10 years. And he was one of the guys who didn't want any relationships at all. He was like the biggest anti-relationship guy ever. The woman he's spending his life with right now, and he's actually love her a lot, and he loves her, like he's really, really loves her. Do you actually know what she did that made him think I need her in my life? It is such a simple gesture, but she took like a napkin. They were sitting and having dinner, and he dropped wine on his white suit. She took a napkin and put some, I think some like water and salt and rubbed it to try to clean it. He's like, that love and care I haven't felt from anyone. And no, I need this. I need her in my life. So you don't know what small action or whatever you do that will actually help that person. It is insane. I am still trying to figure that thing out. I I don't know, but I think that's the reason why God speaks in the Quran that you should always do good deeds. People think that, oh, so your good deeds are going to enter your paradise. No, no, no. That is something that I realized this year too. No, that's not it. But there is a reason why he's telling you to do that, because that builds your character. That is my interpretation. It builds your character, but not only that, when you do good deeds, you're planting seeds. So it shapes you as a person. Like if you keep helping people, and from what I've heard, helping people, and from what I felt myself, is when you help people, there is no feeling of joy more pleasing than that, because you're actually there for someone.
I mean, people were there for us. So, you just try to take care of people best
100%.
you can. And we want them to pass it on.
Yes. So let me ask you, because this is something that I've been struggling with, and I bet a lot of people have been struggling with this. I'm thinking about the brand. Like speaking of you need to create your brand. Now, what is a brand for you, and how? Because you have been building your brand for a while now. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean it's a personal brand though. I'm not building like a big business here. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, but if you
I
do a
think those can be
personal,
different.
okay, but if you're building a personal brand, could you like walk us through, not maybe not step by step, but what do you think is important when you're building a personal brand?
Well, Gary talks about content. I mean, it's basically what unique content can you provide? So I've had a lot of people ask me this, like, hey, I want to have more of a footprint in Web3 and have a network. And how do I do that? And I say, well, what are you good at? Like, what are your strengths? Take your top two strengths and, put out content about those things. So this guy hit me up. He's a cook. I was like, all right, you're a cook. Put out some recipes. Make a thread about, put a recipe up or make a video about it. So, I had to think about what was I good at, and I'm a writer, so I
Yes.
started writing. And I would just write when I felt like it. I never have a schedule. So I think the number one thing with a brand is like think about what's sustainable for you. Like don't say you're going to do something every week if you can't. Don't say every Friday I have this coming out, because what starts to happen? Oh, this Friday's edition is going to be delayed or canceled. So first thing is do what's sustainable for you. Second thing is do what you're good at. Put out something interesting that you haven't seen. So everybody's got a sense of the scene that they're in and what kind of content's out there. Start to look for like what do you think is necessary. So I wrote articles about Mike Yamashita's photography because I was helping his team, and I was like, we need something comprehensive that explains everything, and it can't be a thread. Why don't I write an article about it? And I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of help tell the story. So I think if you have a unique identity, your brand will be hotter. There's influencer brands, but for me, I want a real contributor brand, a real content brand where somebody is putting out something that's unique to them and
But
they
what do you
have
mean
you.
by unique identity?
Well, like, all right, the average Joe
Okay.
loves football and watches sports on Sunday, and he has a cheesesteak for lunch. And I mean, you
Okay.
think about like what are some of the cookie cutter things that a lot of average people are doing? Not that those things are bad. I do a lot of those things, but like what about you is interesting that people might want to hear about? You
Okay.
know, like I in college got into Arabic and I was teaching Arabic within 2 years, and I'm a Quran specialist. So I have a deeper understanding of the Middle East and the Arab people than most people have.
Yeah.
That's what got me into Arabic ENS. So when I saw ENS and the 10K club or the 999 club, I'm like, dude, this could happen in Arabic.
What's
So
ENS?
Ethereum name service, like
Okay.
hydrate.eth, for
Yes.
example. So, these Ethereum domains, when I realized that you could do it in different languages, I was like, holy shit, like Arabic could be huge with this. I should write about my thesis that I have. So I did that. So I think like in in corporate, when we were managing people, we had different coaching models. And my favorite one was the opportunistic coaching model. Something
Okay.
comes up, something all of a sudden comes up that someone's doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to coach to it, bring them in and coach them to it. And there was certain wisdom in waiting until their weekly one-on-one, like you would write those things down. But while it's fresh in their mind, people are very coachable. So in Web3 or really in anything, sometimes the content springs on you. All of a sudden you're like, aha, I could write about this. I could do a video about this. And I think that's where a lot of the best content comes from. So I think my advice to people building a brand would be, don't try to schedule time always to build your brand. Sometimes these things are going to come up spontaneously. Like you're going to see a Twitter space out of nowhere. You're like, "Ooh, I'm into that stuff. Let me go in there and speak and get involved." So if you're passionate, you have to figure out how to channel that. And a lot of that cannot be scheduled. It's hard to put together. For example, if I say I'm going to write an article on Monday morning, it's due Tuesday. That's tough. You have to be able to control your time to the degree that you can wait for the inspiration and then start putting your notes. And once you have enough notes, you can go ahead and write that article or do that video, for example. And then also, I think people shouldn't take themselves too seriously. Like, you have to have fun, you have to be animated, you can't be too technical because you'll lose people. People's attention span these days are very short.
Amen to that.
So you have to be very dynamic and interesting.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to get in front of people and talk to them. So, like, I see certain people in Web3 that are very popular and they get on stage and they're nervous. You can tell that they don't think a lot on the fly. So one way to do that is to play games or even like do different things where you have to think on the spot and be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that helps too. But don't take yourself too seriously. Don't always go to the negative as well. People want to be uplifted. They don't
Yeah.
always want controversy or negative, cynical takes. It's so easy to say, "Oh, that's not going to work," or "Oh, I don't like this idea," or "I don't like this project." Like, there's a lot of negativity out there, and I always encourage people with your brand. People will follow you if you're interesting and positive.
Absolutely. But something that I've noticed as well is that people are way too hard on themselves. I've been reading the book Atomic Habits, and I love that book. Um, he says you need to start slow, and he says that 2 minutes per day is enough because that's for you to build a habit. 2 minutes each day, and that the whole point is that they want you to show up. That's the
Mm-hmm.
point. Like if you need to show up, just be there for 2 minutes. Do not go over 2 minutes. When 2 minutes are over, you're done. You're not allowed to do more than that. So people, what they want to do is, and this is what I've done multiple times. I'm like, you know what? Now I'm going to the gym. So I go to the gym. I hit it hard for 3 days. After 3 days, I'm like, screw it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. But now that I've implemented this kind of like 2 minute rule, each day I mean, like, I 2 days ago I was supposed to sleep at 10, but it was 10:25. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm 2:30, I'm gonna sleep. But I was like, 25, that's 5 minutes. I can work out for two. So I went, did some curls, 2 minutes. I got my workout for the day done. You know how good that felt? I was like, yes, I got it in my day before I went to sleep. And I think that is very important. and it applies to everything in life. Like I've been thinking about when I'm praying recently, is that a lot of people want to become very focused in their prayer. But let's say you've been praying for a year unfocused. What makes you think that you can be focused in a night? Just focus on one thing. I want to read Al-Fatiha, the first verse. I want to, or the first chapter. I want to read that and focus. Or you know what? Even better. I want to read one verse of that chapter focused. And if the rest is unfocused, that's fine with me. But at least I've hit the milestone of what, you know what? One verse, I'm very focused on that. And that's it. And then you slowly start to build up and strengthen your focus and say, okay, I want to focus more. Two verses, 3 verses, 4 verses. And then after a year, you will see how your focus will shift and what you will be focused on. So it's insane how these small things can build up and make a big thing. And that's something I've always said, and I've always believed that especially in relationships, that it's the small things that make the relationship. It's not the big things. It's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
you buying.
al khushu' is so important in prayer. Sincerity is what it means. Um, but yeah, I mean, you just, if you have a lapse, just get back on track. That's all it is. I mean, some people, I think, in Islam, they don't really work on their pronunciation.
Mhm.
You have to work hard to have a level of qiraat, like your voice and your pronunciation, that you like to hear. And once you get that level of skill where you can read Quran, or read things in Arabic at a level that it sounds good, you like to hear yourself.
Yeah.
So I think when you pronounce it in your mind, it's easier to focus if you're saying it correctly. So
Yes.
I always encourage people, like, finish learning. I mean, I'm an intermediate in Arabic. I'm not advanced yet. Um, but I'm always learning. But I love to read Quran, and you sing it. It's like a song. I have an interesting story I'll
Mm.
tell. I do archaeology as a hobby. I like to go to cornfields after they've been plowed, after a rain, and look for arrowheads and stuff.
Are you serious?
Yeah, so I
That's
started to read.
interesting.
Yeah, so I started to read books. Well, I've always felt connected to the land, and Allah Ta'ala says you should love where you live. And to truly love where you live, you have to know it's tarikh, it's history.
Yeah.
And to learn its history, you have to learn who was there before you. I'm mostly by blood a white settler, explorer, quote unquote,
Yeah.
colonist. So I wanted to learn about where I lived. So I started learning about the Native Americans. And I ended up volunteering for an archaeology dig in South Carolina. And I went down there, and of course I was kind of an outsider, so I was working there, and they're asking me all these questions. And by the third day, they had found out I had an Islamic studies degree and I did Arabic. So they're asking me all the usual questions that they ask Muslims, like, well, what do you think of the terrorists? And what do you think of 9/11? And all those
Yeah.
things that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So we get through all that. And I used to go at the end of the day, we were all staying in this hunting cabin near this
Okay.
site. And I would go back early and start the fire because it was cold. So I'd get all the firewood and start up the fire and try to take care of these guys, because they're mostly these older archaeologists. So we were around the fire during the last night, and I said, well, they were asking me all these questions about Arabic, and they were really into it. They're curious people. They're archaeologists. They want to learn about ancient people. So they're asking me, and I was like, hey guys, like, if you want to know about this, like, let me read Quran to you in Arabic so you really can have an immersion into what this really is at its essence. We're asking all this side stuff, but we haven't actually heard, kalam Allah. We haven't heard the word of Allah Ta'ala.
Yes.
So I start reading, and I think I read to them like Surah Al-Waqi'ah or something,
Yeah.
something like medium length. And this old archaeologist, he was I forget his name, but he was very, like, good old boy Southern, like grew
Okay.
up in the South, thick draw. And the type of questions he was asking me, I knew that he had some prejudice, right?
Okay.
So he says, can I see the book? And he looks at it, And then he pretends to throw it in the fire, and he looks at me with this smile. Like, what is this guy doing? And he says, let me tell you something. He says, my entire life have been prejudiced against these Muslim people. And he says, but that was one of the most beautiful things that I have ever heard. And he said, I will never feel the same about these people again, thanks to you. And so what was interesting about that is, like, when I came in there, I was just a regular dude. I didn't tell them nothing about what I believed. I didn't wear anything to let them know who I was.
Yeah.
They had to dig in and find out. And so I was very subtle about it. But I consider that one of my greatest accomplishments, because here you have someone that their heart was touched. And it's not like I walked up and I was like, hey, you want to be a Muslim? You know, it's not like anything like that.
Yeah.
I had no
Yeah.
interest in that. But they were really touched by that. And
That's
you know,
awesome.
that's the kind of things that happen when you have a unique identity. You're able to, in certain situations, do things that are really profound. And I really urge people to follow your conscience, because otherwise you're fighting your conscience.
Yeah.
And as you follow your conscience and your instincts, it leads you into interests that bear fruit. And everybody's different. But when you think for yourself and you're willing to take risks and try new things, that really helps you develop a unique identity. And I would say that most people do have a unique identity. They just don't know how to express it yet.
Yeah.
They haven't connected the dots on certain things that they consider separate.
They
You know
haven't
what I
had
mean?
a conversation with themselves even.
Right. Right. And I tell people the most important source of wisdom really is your own heart. If you're listening to yourself, and we used to do this in coaching in a corporate environment, they came in and they did this whole coaching conversation training. And the gist of it was 80% of the conversation should be the person you're talking to, and you're asking them questions.
Okay.
And they already know the answer. Most of the things, like if you sat down and you were like, all right, I'm going to coach this person on 10 things, and here's what they are, and I'm going to tell them what to do. If you ask them questions about how to do those 10 things, they will already know all the information you're about to tell them to do. You just need to ask them questions about it.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example. I was driving with my kids yesterday, and we were going to see some relatives.
Okay.
And I said to them, well, how should we act at the table? Should we throw our food, or should we be, calm? Well, we should be
Yeah.
calm. Should we tell dirty jokes, or should we just kind of be quiet and eat? So
Yeah.
they knew all the answers, all the things I was going to tell them. Now we're going to see relatives, and you need to be good, and you need to do this. Instead of that, I asked them what to do. And that way
Interesting.
it came from them.
Yes.
And this is how you coach people. You ask them questions, and it's called a powerful question.
Interesting.
And one of the most powerful questions is ones that end in no. You know what I mean? Like, I ask
No.
myself when I start this, I say, do I want this to be a shitty podcast or great? And I say, I want it to be
Yes.
great. So you bring the energy.
Yes.
And it's funny, when I met Gary, I was like kind of tired, and I had regrets about how I was with him. I was like, man, you should have been more animated, and you should have been this. And I said, no, just accept it. Next time you meet some big celebrity, you'll charge that energy up a little more to meet them how you want to meet them. Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think, it's interesting, but
It's
it's a
kind of
powerful
like
question.
it's kind of like losses are healthy to take.
Sure.
As in like, you were not your top self, or you weren't the way you wanted to be with him. So that's a
Mm,
loss for you. So
right.
that, okay, next time I'm going to do a lot better.
Mm.
Have I understood you correctly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I have met a lot of people. I've met a lot of famous people, and I
Mm-hmm.
never felt like starstruck the way I was with him. And I think it's because I am usually the one that is injecting the charisma into the situation. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm usually the one that's trying to brighten the day of the
Yes.
other. And he came and really brightened my day. And I couldn't believe that, because I'm very cynical usually about famous people. I'm like, oh, there's
Yeah.
hype. And that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I didn't want to meet him. I was like, oh, there's some hype. He's got a good publicist and blah, blah, blah. But no, he genuinely radiated strong energy.
Yeah.
And I understood, I could feel what it was, and it was unconditional love.
he's a very, very genuine person. And I, I had this conversation with the guy I was having conversation with on episode 2. Gary is a very genuine person. I don't think I've seen anyone as genuine as him. And even his projects that he works with, um, he's very uh, genuine towards everyone. Like he actually puts his mouth where his work is. So he doesn't just say stuff for the heck of it. He actually works on them and wants to give you something all the time. So so yeah, I had, when you meet someone for the first time, you kind of have a expectation of them, and it's either, it either gets better or worse. Your image of them even either gets better or worse. For me, it got a lot better with it. I really appreciate the fact, and I'm very thankful for God for giving me the opportunity to actually go to VCon, because a lot of people didn't have the chance to go to VCon. So I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity, and uh, it was an it was very intense. It was a very intense week, but I loved it. I would do it all over again. Like I had a 17-hour bus trip, but that's one way. But I would do it again. Uh, so
What
so
other
yeah,
conferences have you gone to recently?
zero.
Zero?
That was the only I have been to.
NFT NYC is interesting.
Yes, yes, but I didn't feel like I was ready. Honestly, I'm at the very beginning stages of NFTs and
Cool.
crypto.
Good
So,
shit.
so yes, I have bought crypto, but I bought crypto and held it. I've never got really into it. I am trying to do research and learn more about NFTs, learn more about crypto, so I actually know what the hell I'm talking about if I'm ever going to talk about it.
Oh,
But
dude, we should talk about ENS. That would be so good.
oh yeah, but we could actually do a doesn't need to be a podcast, but we could actually do a session where we talk about it to learn.
Yeah,
We can
absolutely.
do a session like that, absolutely.
I wrote
But
an article about ENS in early May, and it's one of the things I shared widely at VCon. And the article was about my thesis on Arabic ENS names.
okay,
And Arabic at the time, you could mint one, for a couple months for like 0.05 ETH.
okay,
And those things exploded. They went to like 6 ETH. They're down now to like 1 ETH,
yeah,
but that club became very popular. Um, there's a site called ENS Vision, and it has one of the things that I've been asking for from like a lot of websites for a long time, which is on-chain sales analytics.
hmm,
So whether it's sold on OpenSea, LooksRare, or whatever, it it appears on ENS Vision, and it allows you to have different clubs. So they have
okay,
like the 10K club, which is numbers, 0000 to 9999, etc. So there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in crypto right now that's like changing the game. And the hardest thing to do in crypto is to change your bias. So like you get into one community or one thing and you think it's
yeah,
going like this, and then there's something else big happening that you're missing because you're just not aware of it.
yeah.
Um, and you're stuck in a bubble. So people do that a lot with like layer ones, like Cardano or Harmony or whatever. Like they get kind of stuck in that bubble and they don't really branch out and experiment. So I encourage people to try all kinds of different stuff and just see what works.
Well, I was on the chapter I read yesterday in Atomic Habits. There was a sentence that actually caught my attention. It's basically a lack of self-awareness is poison. Reflection and review is the antidote. And he was talking about in that chapter on how when you build a habit, you kind of, if you build it and you have that habit, you think you're a master at it and you keep doing the same thing. But you need to keep questioning yourself and self-reflecting to even improve, to become a true master. So yes, I think people should always be open-minded open to new things, read about them. Because if you keep doing, like you said, if you're just talking about Cardano and nothing else, what are you supposed how are you supposed to learn? You can't. So you always need to be open to different things. But if I
Yeah,
can ask
and
you,
some things will fail. The most common thing I see in crypto is when a project starts going poorly and people try to save it and it will not be saved.
yes,
There are, if you said what projects have been saved, there's like a list that's extremely short. People start trying to save it with their money. They buy more of the NFTs on the way down, dig themselves deeper. They get more involved in the community, but the developers don't deserve the help.
yeah,
So people try to bail out a ship. And sometimes it's okay to just sell at a loss, tax harvest, and move on. So the theme of the year, the 2-word phrase or mantra for me is cut early. Meaning if something is not going well, just if it's not like your own business,
yeah,
just get out of it. Turn your attention elsewhere. And I really have one of my biggest accomplishments is I've talked a lot of people out of doing projects.
yeah,
Like, hey man, I know you got an artist and everything and you want to do a 10K, but you're not built for it. You don't have the expertise, you don't have the time, you have the money, the product's even not even that great. Or just telling people like, don't launch a token. You don't need a token with your project. You can do it a different way.
yeah,
Um, talking, I don't want to talk people out of their dreams, but I also want to be realistic to tell people like this will destroy you. And what happened with me was a lot of people after Rotten Swap were coming to me like, oh, dude, you were the best community manager. You should do a project. We'll support it. Or you should port Rotten Swap to Binance and just do that. Or, oh, can you come in and manage my project for me and help my team? And I was like, no. Because I, number one, needed a break. But number two, it's very, very hard to do these projects right where in 3, 6, 9 months it'll be in the same area. So I decided to help small artists just make NFTs, but not commit to doing something that broad.
okay,
And I think I'm so lucky that happened to me before the bull market,
yeah,
because there's so many people that got involved with projects that didn't do well. And I'm talking about people who launched things where there was like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 supply and said it's going to be this, and there's a roadmap, and the roadmaps are usually just all bullshit, you
yeah,
know. So the type of art I like and the type of NFTs I encourage people to look at is art is something you buy to look at and talk about and discuss. That's art. It doesn't have a utility. It doesn't have a
yeah,
drop later or an access. That's something different. That's not art. So the type of NFTs I really encourage people to look at are ones that have an interesting story. And it's all about the who founded it or who took it over, who bought into it, what are they building. So the actual history on chain that's happened with the collection is interesting. So there's crypto punks and then there's crypto funks, which I'm sure you've heard of, which
I've
are the
actually not heard of them.
okay. Well, crypto funks has, in my view, the best movie script in crypto,
Okay,
meaning what happened to the project, what did the people have to deal with and go through to get where they are today. And
interesting.
so have you heard of Azuki?
The
Azuki.
name is familiar,
Yeah,
very
it was like
familiar.
a top 10 project. It's those side facing like anime style
It rings a
profile
bell.
pics.
It rings a
Yeah.
bell yeah.
At one point, people thought Azuki was going to flip Bored Apes,
Okay,
and it had like a 30 or 40 ETH floor for
okay,
10,000. Okay. Now, Azuki was a huge project, and Funks was a little project where they flipped the CryptoPunks the other way and called it Funks. Okay.
okay,
The developer disappeared after a few weeks and didn't hand over the contract, didn't hand over the Twitter or the Discord or really anything. They just kind of disappeared. So the community got really involved in Funks, trading it, and a lot of the people were wrecked, and so they're trying to save their bag. But what happened was the Funks were delisted from OpenSea. and they were delisted because they were a carbon copy of Punks, just flipped the other way.
Yeah.
And at that time, Larva Labs, which owned CryptoPunks at the time, now it's Yuga Labs that owns them. Larva Labs did a DMCA request on OpenSea, and they took down the collection. Okay. And they were fighting back and forth, and they got it re-added. So CryptoPunks started to trade on Cargo, which I had used, and they got my attention because they were on Cargo. And I said to the guys, well, you could make your own website to trade Funk so it's not on Cargo and do something cool. So that's what they did. They made a website called Not Larva Labs. And Not Larva Labs is a piece of art in itself, and it tells the story of the Funks. So what happened was, when they delisted a collection off of OpenSea, it was only on the front end. So the back end had all the listings still there. And if you knew where to look, you could access them in the contract. So the Funk started building and started pumping. And every time they would pump, people would start sniping these old OpenSea listings at the lower price, and it would kill the pump. So then they complained to OpenSea, and OpenSea didn't fix the issue. And 3-4 months later, this started happening to Bored Apes. It started happening to like World of Women, all these big projects, and it got OpenSea in a lot of trouble. And they finally had to fix the issue, but it cost them millions of dollars.
I can imagine.
They had to refund people the difference.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then Funks made their own fee-free marketplace. And the fee-free marketplace was popping, they did really well. But the Funks people started to criticize other projects. And one of the things that happened was Azuki put out a project, a side project, an expansion called Beans.
Okay.
And it was this cute little crate, and then it was these beans, and they gamed the mint. So one of the developers bought, how like when they mint out a token, but it's not revealed yet, and people are buying just random ones?
Yeah.
So someone bought some of the random unrevealed ones for like a lot more money than the others, and they turned out to be the most rare tokens. So what happens is the developers know which token numbers will be rare, and they buy them off the open market before they reveal the collection.
Yes.
The type of scam that happens.
Yeah.
So the Funks people knew that this happened with Funks and with Zunks and some other projects. They saw it happen with Azuki, and these guys were constantly searching for these developers who rugged the whole time since they left. And they noticed someone did this with the Beans mint, and it traced back to one of the Funks developers. They nailed them, and they found that Zagabond, who was the founder of Azuki, again, top 5 project in NFTs, 40 ETH floor, was the original developer for Funks. Ooh. And they were able to retrieve $1.4 million of royalties, 500 tokens, some of were the most rare in the collection. Okay. And they got the contract back. So he gave the Funks contract back to the Funks developer who made Not Larva Labs. And because of that, they have been able to use the money for a couple great proposals, one of which is a Funk auction house. So the tokens they retrieve from the developer, they sell one every 3 days, and it goes to the treasury. Now they're making this really interesting thing. So like, how a collection has a rare token, and sometimes it's harder to find liquidity for a rare than a floor token?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes pretty rare tokens get sold at or near the floor because of this, because people are trying to exit and they don't have time to wait for a sale.
Yes.
So they made this technology that reviews the traits, and it reviews the prior sales of those traits, and it comes up with a rarity floor for the more rare tokens. So if you have a punk zombie or a punk ape or a punk hoodie or some of these really popular traits, it will give you an estimate. It's like a Kelly Blue Book, like a car valuation for NFTs. Yeah. So if you have the higher model in the collection, you can automatically get a price for more. So they're releasing this. And I've been very involved with the Funks because I find the story very interesting.
Okay.
But what this has is it's an interesting on-chain story. Here you have a developer that disappeared. He was tracked down. He had to give the contract back. He had to give the money back to save his bigger project. Remember, why would he give the money back? Why would he do all this?
Yeah.
Because he has a top 5 project with millions and millions on the line. So he had to get strong armed by them basically to make it right. That's interesting
Yep.
because remember, it's really not about the image. Like moonbirds, for example, are tanking. They look like shit. Like they're not that great. They're pixel birds. Like it's not like something you're gonna want to put on a t-shirt or in a movie. Like the apes at least had some images that were funny or interesting or
Yeah.
dank in a way that looks good. But like moonbirds, they just had proof and all these promises, and that's why they're going down. Um, but it's the story of the token itself that's interesting, not necessarily the image
Yeah.
or not necessarily the team behind it, because the image only goes so far and the team can fail. So it's the story of the NFT that really is valuable. And I urge people really to look into what are the most interesting stories in NFTs and invest accordingly. Not, of course, financial advice, but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's if you have a good story in 10, 20, 30 years, those things will age, I think, better than just a hyped up project.
Well, for me, it's, it's the same thing as in don't invest in something you don't believe in. If you have a stock, if you have whatever you want, stock, NFTs, crypto, whatever, don't invest in something you don't believe in. If you believe in it, invest. If you lose, you lose. If you win, you win. That's just how it is. But embrace your actions and don't blame yourself. Okay. I failed this trade. All right. I bought something, it failed. Learn from it and move on. That's important. Don't just follow the crowd and see, okay, this thing is going good, so I'm just gonna buy it. And I hope that it will go. No, do your research, get into it, and then if you're convinced about it, try it. You just can't win all the time in life. That's not
Well, people
how it
buy green
works.
candles. I mean, they're buying the FOMO and the hype,
Oh yeah.
where really the good things to buy are like the rock bottom when there's real doubt. But I urge people not to follow it down. So you buy something high during hype and the hype goes away and you're waiting for it to get back to that hype. It usually never
But
will.
it doesn't need to be a hype because Ethereum was at like $4,000. It's not today.
Right.
But it's not like Ethereum is tanking because it's shit. It's just the market.
Right.
The market goes up
Yeah.
and down. So, but let me ask you this. Thank you for your time, by the way. It's
Absolutely.
been a very
We'll
interesting
have to do it again.
conversation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
man.
So, if you would leave the viewers with one thing, whoever is listening, one thing that has helped you a lot in life, what would that be?
Mm. In life, I think it's back to just what is the purpose, right? And I truly try to live for others and not myself, because if you live for yourself, you're pleasure seeking, going from one desire to another. I think for me, I genuinely enjoy teaching people and helping people. And if you are living for others, then you will really truly be fulfilled. You cannot be fulfilled with luxury because there's always someone with something better. You can get the 50 million yacht and you pass the guy with the 100 million yacht and you're like, fuck. So there's this part of us, and it's Islam has one of the best sayings on this. If the son of Adam had a mountain of gold, he'd ask for another mountain.
Mm-hmm.
That's an Islamic saying. So for me, I have always urged people to really take a hard look at luxury and spending for the sake of flexing, and try to eliminate that completely from your life, because it's fun to look nice. You can spend appropriately to look good, but there is really no use for luxury. And so this money that we get, these resources are a trust. And some of this trust is supposed to be devoted to helping others. We were on a space with Dame Dash the other day. He's a famous producer and music person. And he said, work hard so you can control your time, so you can love properly. Okay. Love properly. So, when we're living for others, we're loving others unconditionally, but you have a duty to the people in your immediate vicinity, your family, your neighbors,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
the people around you. Those are the ones you have to spend time on. So people will have shit kids, not know their neighbors, but they're giving money, tons overseas. So what I urge people to do is live for others and live for who's been put in front of you. These are who you got. This is your crew. Like, you have people in a family or friend group and they're talking shit on somebody that's in the group. And it's like, dude, that's your wife or that's your friend. So, okay, you're hating on them. Go help them. So, really, we have to spend some of our time to help others and teach others. And teaching is very hard because people don't change right away. You teach people something, then they learn the hard way. They don't listen and they come back to you, man, I should have listened to you. Yeah, no shit. So it's like for me, people don't invest enough love and time in their immediate vicinity. And we really have a duty to, whether it's our neighbors, like there's a hadith that says, treat your neighbor the best whose door is closest to you. A lot of people don't even talk to their neighbors. So for me, it's who do you have a duty to serve and support? Do it, love them unconditionally, and that really opens doors. Living not for you and for your own pleasure and excitement, but living to uplift others. And in that love you experience, in that is the ultimate thrill for me.
Amazing. Cause this is really good because I got different ideas that popped up in my mind because I've been having conversations with my dad and we've been discussing just random stuff. And when you discuss random stuff, that's when you get like, okay, you start connecting dots. And this is amazing. Thank you so much for that, my man.
Quite welcome.
So,
Honored to meet with you today. And I met you handing out a card in a line of 300-400 people, and you said, come be on my podcast. I said, let's do it.
oh yeah,
So, for the listeners, that's why we're here, and we're going to do it again.
oh
But
yeah.
honored to be here, and honored if anyone's still listening to these different takes and stories.
Well, I'm gonna put this up on YouTube and social media for people to enjoy. So, yeah, I mean, like, imagine if I hadn't asked you if you wanted to be on the podcast. It's all about doing actions, small actions, like just one question. And we don't know. Maybe we'll do a session where you teach me more about crypto and stuff to teach other people too.
I'd be
So yeah,
happy to. I'd be
we're
happy to.
yeah, so we never know. But yeah, this is amazing. So thank you so much for attending, man. I
Quite
really
welcome.
appreciate
Quite
it.
welcome. We'll see you again soon. And for those that are listening, you can follow me on Twitter at Crypto Hydrate.
I'll put all your accounts into the what do you call the description.
Cool, man. My pleasure. Tashraftu. Ma'salama.
Thank
And
you, thank you.
talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.